I've also heard stories about leaders, very senior leaders, throwing files across the table, banging their desks, showing physical aggression, banging the doors, throwing laptops on tables. And this is all in the presence of their team, of their subordinates. Imagine the trauma that these people go through. Imagine the stress that these people take. And those are, whether you call it microaggression or whether you call it expressive aggression, these are things that shouldn't happen at the workplace. And if they do happen, action should be taken immediately. We don't want such type of people. Companies shouldn't have such type of people in organizations.
Thank you for listening to the podcast thus far. 2024, big year ahead. The one favor I would ask, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, is to press the follow and subscribe button on whatever media platform you listen to us, as it helps us grow our network and grow the podcast. So thank you and enjoy the podcast today.
Hi, I'm Rutika Hardikar and I specialize in tax recruitment at Alchemy Search, which is a niche finance and tax recruitment firm based in Dubai. We are back with our tax podcast series, and today's podcast is very unique for me as I'm not going to talk anything about tax. In this podcast, we'll be discussing some crucial aspects that contribute to the success of any organization. It's the people that make the organization. How do we build a sustainable work environment? How do we ensure the well-being of team members? How do we build a high-performing team while ensuring stability? I'm honored to have a very senior tax leader to share his perspectives on these topics. I'm thrilled to welcome Ashfaque Patel, the Group Head of Tax at the Landmark Group, with an impressive 24-year career in the tax industry. Beyond his professional expertise, Ash is a dedicated father of 2 teenagers and an avid hiker, having recently led an expedition to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with former team members. Ash has also been on a unique health journey following the 1 meal a day diet for the past 9 years. And in addition to being an amateur magician, Ash is a motivational speaker and mentor, touching the lives of many. He is a seasoned podcaster and hosts his own podcasts on Spotify, where he shares insights on leadership and personal growth. Hi, Ash. Thank you for joining us today for this podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh, very good. And thank you, Rutika, for having me. And I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I have actually seen every single episode, so pleasure to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure you're going to add a lot of positivity in our discussions today. So, because it's going to be a very, very interesting discussion. So, as I mentioned in my intro, there are so many dimensions to you other than being a tax leader. So, most people would be knowing you as a successful tax leader, but I'm sure now they would know that there are so many things you have been doing on the back of it. So, we wanted to know more about you as a person. How do you manage to have all that versatility? How do you manage your time?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. And I think I need to, firstly, I have to say I'm 21 years old with 24 years of experience.
That's good.
So young, that puts...
young at heart.
I like to say I'm 21 years old here and 24 years up there.
Absolutely.
My journey... yes, started in tax 24 years ago, but that's the boring part. I'm sure we don't want to talk about all of that. I love having fun, and there is a definition of fun. I want to bring fun into the work environment, and I want to when it comes to even the family, I want to make sure that. Oh, by the way, I've been married for 19 years and 20th anniversary. I have to think of finding a gift for my wife now.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
No, thank you. I actually think that when you bring fun into your work and your life, it makes everything more interesting.
True.
And for that, I like to hike. I have formed hiking teams here in the UAE. I actually like to do things that would challenge me. Now, one of the things which I did challenge myself 9 years ago was I started something called the OMAD diet. It's not something which it's 1 meal a day. It's very dramatic. I don't recommend a lot of people to do it, but it helps me stay focused. It helps me stay grounded. It also helps me improve my long-term memory as well. But I have 2 teenage children, 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. It's a full-time job over there.
Of course, I can imagine.
And so forth. So yes, that's me in a nutshell, Rutika.
That's amazing. So your tax journey, like you as a successful tax lead, I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many things that make you as a person. So this is really amazing. But I want to know how you manage your time, because we all have like the same 24 hours in a day, but I think you get so much done out of it. It's really amazing to know that. Like, I wanted to know how you manage your schedule throughout the week, handling like a pretty hectic job at the same time.
That's right. We are in 2024, and managing time in 2024 is an art form. I think as compared to maybe 20 to 50 years ago, perhaps, things are fast-paced. Everything is fast-paced. You have a schedule to maintain at home. You have a schedule to maintain at work. As a tax professional, perhaps the things that keeps us going is, and some things that are never-ending, is the evolution, is the changes in the tax landscape. And for that reason, I personally think effective use of your time is very critical. The way you can do this, the way I do it at least, is number one, I actually follow something called the triage system. It's like what you have in the emergency rooms in the hospitals.
Right.
What's your priority? What's your priority in life? What's your priority at work? And how are you going to manage that priority? Take the priority first. Everything else will follow suit. Now, I like to be very disciplined. And if you stay disciplined in your work environment, if you stay disciplined in your work ethics, or in even your values, everything becomes simple. So, for example, I like to be structured. I know what I would be doing today. Tomorrow, the chapter may or may not be written. So the way I always say this is, look, as long as you're in control of today, you're in control of your time. One analogy I always use is, you can write a book, and perhaps there are unwritten chapters. You don't know what that chapter is. It's a blank page.
Right.
You're in control of that page, though. You will be writing that chapter. So let's not think too far ahead. Let's be in control of today and manage that time accordingly. Yes, and I also do follow a lot of the cliche rules of how to manage time, effective delegation, effective. I think it's what I refer to as the 4 Ds, which is delegate, delete, defer, and do.
Okay, delete stands for?
Delete unnecessary tasks, unnecessary politics, and unnecessary things that are not going to add any value to you, your surroundings, your family, your team, your group, and anyone around you, and delete them out.
Absolutely, I think.
Once you start doing that, your time, you're in control of your time. You have to be in control. The greatest, one last thing I'll mention here, Rutika, is the greatest and the most precious thing the most valuable thing rather for us today is not money, it's time.
Yes, 100%. I think I really like the delete factor in that, because there are a lot of unnecessary things which do not add value. On the contrary, they're like so toxic that they take your entire focus from more productive things, and you end up thinking about a lot of unnecessary things. So I think that is a very, very important thing that we need to focus on. That's a pretty amazing tip that you have given. So just moving on to more, about team building and stuff, because I know you've built some dream teams in the past. You've helped a lot of people in their career growth, mentored a lot of young professionals. So what do you think about, building successful teams, high-performing teams, highly motivated individuals, while also balancing the stability in the job at the same time?
That's a very important question, Rutika. The biggest challenge that most companies or groups have is not hiring a person. Perhaps that can be done, but how do you manage? How do you effectively create a team? Once you have a team, anything is, even the impossible is possible.
True.
Yes, in my career, I have, and I'm very proud when I say this, I have built very, very strong teams. And one thing that I have one thing that actually quite resonates with me is making sure that I understand the personalities of the team members. I know the team. I wouldn't pry into their personal lives, but I would actually like to know what are their strengths and weaknesses. And no two people are alike. It's when when you start building a stigma to say, I don't want to hire someone because they lack technical skills. But what if they are excellent with the personality and they have a great attitude, to building or to learning that technical ability? Should you discount them? Absolutely not. Perhaps that weakness is not really a weakness. It's a development area. It's complemented by someone else in your team.
Yeah.
Now you have a team of individuals who are complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses. But to directly answer your question, how do you build such a team? Well, it all starts from the interview stage. Okay, so maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But once you have identified the candidates, now you need to understand the people, as I mentioned. You also need to understand that you can have extroverts and introverts in your team. And I've heard many people around me talk about, I need a person with a powerful personality. I need my team to be outgoing. Hold on, have you actually thought about the value that certain personalities can bring into your team? What if you're an introvert and it's a natural personality trait? It's not something that it's a huge percentage of the population are introverts. Introverts can, just to give you an example, can think outside the box. They stay out of politics.
Yeah.
They are able to think rationally with a clear and calm demeanor, something that perhaps extroverts may or may not be able to do so well. So what if you have the different personalities in your team? What if you have a inclusive team? What if you have people from different cultures and different backgrounds and different nationalities and different ideas coming together? You have the most powerful team out there. True. And I've been very fortunate, Rutika, to have built such teams in my past. And inclusivity is something which is very, very relevant in today's world as well.
Absolutely. I think that is the secret of building the high-performing team, and the most important thing is to create that synergy amongst the team members, probably.
Indeed.
So recently heard a podcast and they were talking about like successful teams, and one phrase, like, it just stayed with me. It was about like team building and how successful teams are made. And one important thing that came across was like successful teams do not happen by accident. They are made and not born. So I think you would definitely resonate with it because you've done that in the past over your career. And I think, is that like your biggest achievement as a leader?
I certainly think so. Where I am today is not because of me, not because of the qualifications I have. It is because of my team. It is because of their achievements. Their achievements are my achievements. My achievements are their achievements.
Yeah, it works both ways.
I'm a very strong believer. And in fact, if I may, I tell you this is it all started almost 15 years ago in my career when I was gifted a book. So it's a very, very good book. It's written by Carol Dweck, and it's called the Mindset, the New Psychology of Success.
Okay.
And if I may just give you one quote from that book, I think it speaks volumes. I read this out. It says, "We like to think of our champions and idols as superheroes who were born different to us. We don't like to think of them as relatively ordinary people who made themselves extraordinary." So you can make yourself extraordinary.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a person who is always striving to be extraordinary in an ordinary world.
True.
Okay, so what I mean by this is you need people around you to amplify yourself.
Correct.
You need people with the abilities that you don't have. You need to have people. You need to surround yourselves with people who will bring a different skill set. You need to surround yourself with people who are positive, who have a positive attitude. You need to surround yourselves with people who have a an ability to understand your weakness as well. And for that, you have to be really, really grounded.
Yeah.
As a leader, I think one of the greatest traits is you have to remain humble, and you have to also manage egos, which is, I think, very, very important as well.
Yes, I think that's true. I mean, the people around you, it doesn't happen by destiny. Sometimes you're actually choosing the people to be around you, and the way you interact with them, I think that comes back to you as well. So
Indeed.
that is really good. I'm very intrigued by your interview style. So like, what is it that you look for in candidates when interviewing them?
Rutika, have you ever been to a country for the first time and gone through immigration, and you have seen that the immigration officers are perhaps not very welcoming? I think we've all been there.
Yes.
Right. So I think of interviews as the gateway to your company. We shouldn't be seeing interviews, or the interview style should not be conventional, where you have someone who is extremely arrogant, who's the interviewer is arrogant, or perhaps thinking that, look, I'm now your source of livelihood.
Yeah.
I'm now going to ask you questions, make sure every single question that I ask you is correct. You put people off. Now, I don't ask, if I'm hiring someone, I would never invite them to an interview and waste their time unless I see something in their resume.
Okay.
And just for your information, all resumes that land at my desk, I go through them diligently, even if there are 500 to 600 of them for one position. And no, I don't take 10 seconds for every resume. I do look at these in detail. So when I invite people in, I tell them it's a meeting. It's not an interview. And I actually want to be, by the time the meeting has ended, I know whether I've hired the person or not.
Right.
You see. And the way that what I do in an interview that perhaps I've been told is quite different is I ask very little technical questions. Okay. But I put them in a situation and I make them feel very comfortable. And this is a natural. I want to learn from them as much as they want to understand the requirements from me as well. So it's a two-way conversation in a bit of a same way we are having a conversation now.
Yeah.
And for that reason, what I'm looking at is, can I see this person in my team? Not can I see this person do the job? That is on me.
Right.
If I'm the line manager, I have to be able to talk about how the job gets done. You know how to get. You're going to have wings. We're not going to clip your wings. We've hired you to do a job. We haven't hired you to come in and do what we just tell you to do. Bring in these new ideas. Bring in bring in a positive environment or culture. But I also will see how the personality traits complement with my existing team. That's extremely important, because what happens, it's that example that we give is, what if you have a basket full of really good apples, but you have one apple that's not so good?
Yeah.
The basket can be affected. It's that thing. So I really like to think of such type of interviews as meetings when the candidate, and I also tell them the values of the company, the values of the group, my values. I think it's important for them to understand, and I hear their values. And at the end of the interview, I know immediately whether that person is a good fit for the company, for the group, for the team, and with myself.
Correct.
And that's how these interviews normally go.
Amazing. I think, and you're leading them, the candidates, to think about this as well, whether they are fit for this role or no. Like it should be both ways. Like they
Absolutely.
should also see themselves fit in the team or with the culture or with the vision of the company or your vision. So I think that's an amazing way to do an interview. And it is a very refreshing perspective, to be honest, because I work a lot in the tax and finance domain, and I see like 90% of the hiring managers would be heavily focused on the technical aspects. And that's just the nature of the job. Like, I understand why, because finance and tax are so, like, the technical skills are undoubtedly important for that. But in that, I feel a lot of times other skill sets that the candidates may possess, they're often overlooked.
That's correct.
So like a right mindset or a right attitude, I think they should carry equal weightage as well.
Absolutely. And once you have a conversation with them, you can also pick up red flags. What if there is an unchecked ego somewhere,
right?
And that isn't been shown. So you can actually tell that. And I like to hire people who have who are humble and who have humility, who understand that, look, by joining a group or an organization, it's not transactional. I'm now going to spend more time at the work with myself and the team and the people around us and the stakeholders than I'm going to spend at home.
Yeah.
They have to also feel homely as such. So that's extremely important there.
True.
I also think, so when it comes to technical aspects, what I'm also looking out for is the humbleness to say, I don't know, but also the confidence to say that I can do it, or I can learn. And that's a great trait, because in the tax industry, I can talk about the tax industry. Everyone is not supposed to know everything. And the learning curve is very steep, and you have to be hungry. You have to have that passion. And, both personalities, as I said, there are many different types of personalities, because I touched upon extroverts and introverts. Both of them can bring and complement complement the learning style that you want to implement. Perhaps the extrovert is going to impart certain level of knowledge to the person who's an introvert, who's thinking outside the box. And I've seen this work in organizations, my teams, phenomenally well, and I'm extremely proud of that.
And recently on social media, there has been a lot of buzz on toxic workplaces, and there's an increased focus on work-life balance. So what are your thoughts on bringing in a positive change at the workplace?
Wow. I think, Rutika, it is indeed the talk of the town. And I think the past couple of months, when we have seen this, many people I've spoken with, in fact, whenever you're in a gathering, people have opened up to their experiences, which perhaps have not been spoken about. There are cultures. So one thing I can add is, in interviews, people do ask me, what type of culture is there in this organization? What can I expect? I've had almost everyone ask me that.
Right.
And I say that you bring the culture with you. If you ask 10 different people from the same company, they're going to give you 10 different answers.
Yeah.
The culture that I have, and I think companies should be promoting, is one where you give an employee confidence that, look, you have stability in the organization. Your wings will not be clipped. You will have good work-life balance. You're going to be in an environment where, if you get it wrong, there is no blame culture, and so forth. And we understand your priorities. And who understands them? It's a line manager. If the culture is set by the line manager.
Right.
So people do say it's set from the top, but you can keep going every level up. And that's what the culture is. So for me, what's very, very important, and I'll talk about positive work cultures in a second, what's extremely important is to, as they say, to nip the negativity in the bud.
Okay.
Right from the start. So when you hire someone, and this is just a thought, I certainly don't want to enter into HR shoes, but we do ask for references.
Yeah.
Right? But whose references are we asking? We ask for references from either the current employer or maybe the friends who have a title or a position. But have we ever thought about asking for references of from their subordinates, from people who have reported into them?
Yeah.
That would speak volumes about the person. I think we need to start asking those questions. We're in 2024. How many organizations actually say, we would like to speak to your teams? Give us names from your teams. We would like to speak to them, and not about random references that you can pull out. And perhaps you have done you worked on a great project with them, and you found a reference and you give it. You will be able to form a picture about that individual from the team, and
Very
that
true.
tells you about the culture. Just to refer to the example that you gave, what if a line manager has different priorities? What if they like cricket or football, and they think that, look, my priority of watching cricket and football or going to these games is more important than my employees' well-being. Certainly, I mean, there is a disconnect there.
Yes.
So how do you bring positivity in? Well, number one, emotional empathy. I think it is spoken about, but my question is, do people actually know what emotional empathy really means? If they want to understand, and this is a topic that is rarely spoken with the teams, ask your team, how do you feel? Ask your team 3 questions every 2 or 3 months. And I have been doing this consistently since many, many, many years.
Okay.
And my teams would know this. Ask them, what change do you want to make in the workplace?
Okay.
I've had people tell me, oh, Ash, I would like a different chair. Someone has said, oh, I would like flowers or plant next to me. Some people say, I want more sunlight. Others have told me, Ash, is it okay if I move away from this desk space? I've got aircon coming under. Something as small as that, right? You can ask them, oh, how do you feel? I don't feel good, Ash, because of this, and this reason. You're able to connect with them. The second question that I ask my team is, what do you think about me? And or what changes do you want me to bring into the team? I've had people tell me, Ash, I would like regular feedback.
Okay.
And I make that change. I've had people tell me, Ash, it would be great if we had more lunches together with the team. That's not necessarily about me, but it's an openness. They want more.
Yeah.
And I do it. The thing is, you can't give empty promises and not do it.
Right.
The third thing I tell them is, okay, so what do you think about where do you stand in the organization? Are you happy with your work? And everyone's not going to be happy.
Yeah.
People will have differing views. Someone would say, look, I don't want my job to be a business specific. I would like it to be agnostic. So I would like to understand different different businesses. Perhaps it's enhancing the career, and I make that happen.
Okay.
Others would say, Rutika, they would perhaps tell me, I would like to know where I sit in the company in the next 3 to 5 years. And the reason they're perhaps asking me that question is not because they feel unstable. Perhaps there is a level of competitiveness that they have seen.
Yeah.
And they want to understand where they stand. Perfectly natural. What I do is I chart out that journey for them. There are others who tell me about their L&D because of the FOMO effect.
Yeah.
Because, a relevant example is with Pillar 2 coming in town. Everyone's hearing about Pillar 2, but I really need to get a diploma or go get a certification and understand. We'll make it happen. And that creates an environment where you understand your team, but you should be the one who walks into a room who has a positive aura and not be afraid of it. If I may just touch a little bit about this, I think HR and companies are equally responsible. So here I talk about line managers, but where we talk about HR and companies, they need to be able to identify toxic individuals and take action.
Right.
During these conversations that I've been having recently over the past couple of months, in open discussions, I've had people tell me that their bosses have shattered their confidence. They've told them things like, "You're nobody." How can we say that to a team member? Imagine that person coming into work with with energy, with zeal, and someone shatters their confidence. So your words that you speak to your team are extremely important. You have to be very careful in what you speak. I've also heard stories about leaders, very senior leaders, throwing files across the table, banging their desks, showing physical aggression, banging the doors, throwing laptops on tables, and this is all in the presence of their team, of their subordinates. Imagine the trauma that these people go through. Imagine the stress that these people take, and those are, whether you call it microaggression or whether you call it expressive aggression, These are things that shouldn't happen at the workplace. And if they do happen, action should be taken immediately. We don't want such type of people. Companies shouldn't have such type of people in organizations.
Yeah, very true. I think you made a very important point in this. And honestly, one person should not be defining what a person's capabilities is or is not. Like, as you said, just some just the blame game, or just saying to somebody that you're a nobody. And it really shatters their confidence, but it is unfair for the person to get there, to be so demotivated because of the opinions of one person. So I think that is something that should be addressed. And at the same time, I think it is very important to create a very positive environment where the people, your subordinates, they feel free to share their feedback. I often see like an upward feedback in organizations, yes. But then a lot of people fear backlash. They do not express themselves the way they want to. Like, they have something in their mind, but they have these kind of a reservation. Should they say that or should they not say it? It's anonymous, but still, like, there is kind of a reservation. But it is important to create that positive environment that the subordinates, the team members should feel confident that this will be received in a positive way, yes. And not kind of, as a negative point against them.
There can be no backlash. And for that to happen, one thing that the definition of a leader is not someone who leads projects or who leads companies, is a person who leads people, you see. So yeah. you can have people will define it in different ways, but the actual definition of a leader is someone who leads people. Leadership is not formed by titles. Leadership can be at all levels. One of the things that I personally feel very strongly about, and those who know me, will completely resonate with what I have to say. The bigger your title, the more humble you should be.
Yeah.
Titles should never be thrown in meetings. Should never be thrown around to portray power. Should never be thrown to get things done from their teams. Titles are there for people to recognize who you are in the company,
yeah,
not the power you hold. And for this, a true leader is someone who would walk into an office and everyone around at all levels would be comfortable with that person being there. There's a test. If you have a person who's very senior who walks into an office and everyone suddenly goes quiet because they're probably buzzing, having a chat, yeah. or it's a buzzing environment, there is something wrong.
Yes, that's a red flag.
So it's a red flag and something needs to change. It's the other way around. When you have a person walking into a room or an office and you have people from far away wishing you good morning or coming up to you and saying, how was your weekend? And the other way around, and you're going around the desks and talking to people.
Yeah.
That is a safe environment.
Correct.
And that's the type of environments which can only be existent or if you understand that your title has been bestowed upon you. You are not, the title that you carry is a burden.
Yeah.
You actually have to now make sure that you are a true leader who now resonates and is able to generate more leaders amongst your team.
This is really, really like a very good discussion on leadership, creating positive work environment. And by the way, recently, just on a separate topic, I recently heard your podcast on Spotify on finding your inner calm. And it was brilliant. It was so good. And it is so relevant for today's working professionals. Like, even if I take the example of tax people, like tax professionals are always reeling under demanding deadlines, their revenue pressures, targets, deliverables. And it's so easy to feel overwhelmed in all the work around you. And it gets very difficult to switch off. Like, I've experienced that as a tax professional myself. So what are your tips on switching off completely from work? Like, how do you do it? Any tips would be greatly appreciated.
Wow. And thank you for referring to my podcast. It was something that is very relevant for all professionals and tax professionals alike. I want to just give you an example. I think we remember, I believe it was 2009. I hope I've got that year right, when we had Captain Sully, who landed the plane in the Hudson River, right? So when the plane hit a flock of geese, the problem had the plane had a problem, and I don't think any one of us can experience that type of pressure or stress that he had experienced.
Yeah.
He had more than 150 passengers on that flight. Now, of course, he landed it safely on the Hudson River, but when they asked him, how did you do it? He says, I paused. He said, I used every inch and every energy to recall my experiences of staying calm. So sometimes calmness isn't just a trait that one has. I think you would see some people are extremely calm and that's what they have been all through their lives. Calmness can actually be learnt through experiences. So the first thing I always say is you need to master the art of pausing. And this is something that we can actually apply at work, at home, in the car. And the first thing to understand is, look, it's a stress response. When something happens, when an event takes place, when a news is broken to us, or when we start getting a flurry of emails, or when we get a phone call that's dreaded, stress, anxiety, everything kicks in. Now, what happens is your mind goes into a fight or flight mode. Yeah. And at that moment, your body's instinct, yes, you've got a lot happening, biologically in your body, but the first thing happens is you start breathing shallow. So you get shallow breaths, and shallow breaths amplifies your stress. And it sends a signal to your brain that, look, and shallow breaths means you're not getting enough oxygen. The way to do this, and there's a technique that most people can use. I know it sounds very, very easy, and it is. It's the breathing technique. Whenever you get hit with any news, or when you have lots of, whenever there's an event that has triggered stress or anxiety, just pause, breathe in, hold your breath, and breathe out. You are rewiring your brain to think that there is calm. And I always say this, and it applies to any environment. And I think this is very relevant with what's happening in Florida. You would see that the hurricane, the right at the center, there's calmness. Yeah. So I think that applies to all of us, where we perhaps are, when we are at our low, or when stress is triggered, we've got multiple things happening around us. Perhaps you've got something. Perhaps you have an audit at work, or you have your boss has said something that you don't like, or you have made a mistake at work. At the same time, what you're also going to notice is something else that's taking place at home will amplify it, or something. One of your team members or one of your colleagues will say something that amplifies your stress, and you immediately begin to feel, hold on, I'm now at this. At a juncture where I might break down. At that moment, put yourself at the eye of the storm. And the eye of the storm is always calm. You will see. You've got howling winds around you. You've got hurricane. You've got thunder. You've got heavy rain. But right at the center, picturize yourself. And the storm, what happens after the storm? There's calm. Yeah. So always remain in that environment. What you also do after you pause is you also are able to understand, how am I going to overcome this stress? Just like Captain Sully. Yeah. He looked around, he found river, the Hudson River, and he landed the plane there. And I think there are a lot of techniques, but that's one way that I am able to remain calm during chaos. Breathing techniques and pausing before reaction. Yes, I think that makes you in control of your emotions in a better way. I think that is something which is really like a major takeaway for a lot of people. So thank you for that. And now coming to the end of the podcast, I have one last question for you is like, what would you advise today's young professionals who would be future leaders? Wow. You've now taken me back to the 15 years I mentioned. For me, always put people first. Always put people first. Never try to compete with anyone else. The analogy that I would use is, imagine you have two trains, one a steam engine and the other is a electric train. the maximum speed is 100 kilometers an hour. You might reach the destination few minutes apart, but you will reach that destination. But in order for the young generation to be leaders, first visualize yourself or aspire to be a leader who you have seen, who you want to be, but don't aspire to be a leader who's going to get a title. Okay. Once you do that, you've set yourself such a ridiculous standard at such a young age that anything that happens in between today and reaching that goal is irrelevant for you. So titles don't make leaders. Leaders work without titles. Stay humble. Always remain calm. Always lead with, if you want to lead with empathy. Today, for example, if you have someone who's just finished, who's a graduate, they need to start thinking of, what does leadership mean? Not just from a corporate world. But what defines a leader? Leader is someone who can be, who you can aspire to be. Leader is someone who commands respect because of their actions, not because of the fact that they were a school captain or they were heads of this function or that function. So stay grounded. Eventually, success will come. Stay focused, have a goal, and remain committed to that goal. One last thing. You need to have a mentor.
Absolutely.
You always need to find a mentor in your lives, whoever that may be. For me, my mentors were my late grandmother and my mother, who have kept me grounded to the family values. For others, it can be your line manager. It can be someone who you know in the company. It can be a friend. It can be a family member or anyone who you think can guide you without subjectivity, without judging you, or and you can trust on them.
Amazing. This is brilliant. I really enjoyed the candid conversation today. And to be honest, it was very refreshing, thought-provoking. Like there's so many new points coming up in this. And I'm sure a lot of listeners would have some major takeaways from this discussion today. So thank you once again for joining us on this podcast. And we have a small token from us at Alchemy for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed this.
I really appreciate you inviting me in today and also appreciate the token. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.